Welcome back, Jacky. Episode number...
Can't remember.
No idea.
It doesn't matter.
No idea.
We're well into this project now. I'm loving it though.
Yeah. So a little bit of a different one this week. Obviously wanted to get behind the founders a little bit of Nostro, and just give a little bit of a background of where you sort of come from. I know you've dropped on a few of the episodes and stuff with Artan and stuff that you originally were DJ. Yeah,
you know about this.
Well, yeah. So we obviously met. We had some really good times. I think we've been all over the world together.
Yeah,
New York, Dubai,
Ibiza about 4 times.
Yeah. So so I think let's start. How have you gone from being this big fat sweaty DJ?
Did you have to say it like that?
Sorry, but
it's true, mate.
You did sweat a lot. And,
I was a big fat sweaty DJ.
You've gone from a sweaty DJ to running 5 businesses, 3 fintech companies, and running marathons and getting shredded. So how was that sort of... I obviously know the story, but
listeners,
like for the listeners, how have we sort of got to that point? Because I think let's take it back first of all. Like when I first met you in 2013, I just started working in Manchester. I just moved all my life up from Manchester after...
I didn't know you just moved there. I thought you'd been there a little while. But
no,
go on.
Yeah, so just moved up from Manchester, and then you started hanging around with us. And I remember my first thought was you coming down to us on a Friday from Leeds. You were at uni at the time, and you would come on a Friday. You'd sit in my flat while I was at work, and you would make music. And at this point you weren't signed, had no DJ career, but I remember physically you telling me, I'm going to become a DJ. So how did we get to that point? And then let's talk about a little bit of your transition, why you left the music industry.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but we can do it relatively quickly. So from those days sat in your flat waiting for you to come back, I remember it vividly. I remember even being sat in your flat when I was waiting for my uni results to come through, one day. And I used to spend quite a lot of time because I used to like to get from Leeds to Manchester ready for you getting back from work so I could pack my laptop down, we can go and get a few beers, we can go straight out, and it would just obviously, the weekends would blend into one. But those days, I kind of forget how much time I used to dedicate to that one thing. I was obsessed. Yeah, I think if you want to do something well, you have to become completely obsessed by it. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's music, whether it's trading, anything. You've got to be all in, all or nothing. So that point, I was at uni. I was hanging around with you guys. I was trying to get in with the group, the cool kids that were there. You guys were this huge, almost family. There was like 20, 30 of you all used to meet on a Friday. Two of the lads used to run a party, Sanders and Kieran. Yeah. They ran Mute. So this is how I kind of got into this community in Manchester, and I just fell in love with everything about it. And Sankey's was a huge part, going to Sankey's and spending a lot of time, which is a nightclub for people who don't know in Manchester, which is now gone, unfortunately. But that whole period from that point, meeting my now wife, moving to London because she said, if you don't move to London, it's not going to work. Getting signed to a record label at the time, which was really big and it did really well. Quit my job, kind of threw my headphone from the call center on the desk. I was like, I'm done, I'm going. And then did DJing professionally for 6 years. Yeah.
So and you were getting paid a lot of money to be a DJ as well. It's obviously a lot of people's dreams, but like you were traveling all over the world. You were doing tours in Australia, America, and from the outset, that looks like the perfect life to everyone. Absolutely, every young person wants to be a DJ, obsessed with it. But like looking back at it now, it didn't seem very healthy for you at all.
Well, my personality didn't match the industry. I was too impulsive. Yeah. And my habits of partying were just getting out of control. You're essentially getting paid. But this is how I saw it. you can treat it like a job. And I know some people, some big names in the industry, like a good friend of mine now, who I'm lucky to call a friend, is Roger Sanchez, who people will know that name. He does it and treats it like a business. Yeah. It's his job, and he treats it like a business, which is how we treat this business professionally. Or you can treat it like you're getting paid to party, which is what I thought I was. I thought I was just getting paid a lot of money to travel, to drink, to stay up late, to, all that stuff. And it just had such a negative impact. And I didn't realize until lockdown happened. Now, we went into lockdown, and this is one thing that I kind of feel that everyone can relate to in some way, even if you weren't in the music industry. You get to lockdown and no one can go anywhere, right? You just sat at home and you have to face yourself. I remember sat in the front of the mirror, like looking at myself physically, like, I'm not happy. And this wasn't even straight at lockdown, because when lockdown happened, I lost all my gigs for 5 months. So I had no money. I was living with my mother-in-law. I had $6,000 of debt on a credit card. My overdraft was maxed out. I had no savings, no investments, nothing. So I was like, I've got nothing. I may as well just party. So we're partying in the house for months. Yeah. And it got to 3 months down the line, and then I realized, what am I doing? I had to change something. So at that point, to fast forward, I kind of went down the trading route purely out of it was almost like I was in a corner. What do I do? I was sat at home. I see people posting trading videos. They're making X, Y, and Z. I had a friend who was doing it. I invested some money in this fund, and it did really well. And I managed to get myself back on my feet, which again was maybe a stroke of luck. But from that investment that I made with whatever money me and my wife had at the time, it just caught my interest, and I was like, I want to learn how to do this. Now, and then I spent the next however long, 1 and 2 years, trying to learn how to trade. Yeah. Which is when we were doing it. I was kind of trading a little bit, kind of when we went into lockdown, but just dabbling, watching YouTube videos. Yeah. I would say I was trying to trade in 2019, but it was just at the airport looking at content. Yeah. Really, when lockdown, I had time. I wasn't traveling. I wasn't gigging. I wasn't allowed. And then I realized I don't want to go back to that life. I don't want to be in airports on my own at 3 a.m, hungover, away from family and friends. Mate, how many things did I miss that you guys are doing? Whether it was weddings or even just going out for meals. I didn't do anything with my friends. Yeah. So you obviously then transitioned to met our other partners and shareholders. And you started that team. Your life started changing massively, just looking from the outset as one of your friends. You almost gone from being a DJ as a creative, like you said, but it wasn't really a job for you. It was just going to then now you've got a massive structured life where you're running multiple businesses. How have you handled that transition into doing that? Because you've never really sort of had that corporate look. I wouldn't say what we do is absolute corporate, but it's more of a corporate life now you've got than you previously had before. Yeah. How have you handled that transition when you've come into that quite late? I think it was, again, coming back to what I said before, and it kind of makes sense here as well, is I was forced into a corner. Yeah. And previously in my old, say, lifestyle or life, whatever you want to call it, there was zero structure. And I think I need structure in order to get stuff done. As a DJ, my job was to essentially was to play music for 2 hours at a gig. Yeah. I didn't look at all the other stuff like making tunes and getting in the studio and collabing with other people. I didn't do any of that. Now I have to do everything in terms of my timetable. So it's still a struggle. It's the way my brain works. I'm all over the place, right? You're the same. You can relate there. But I've got 4 businesses. This is obviously the 5th one now. Streamline Studios, which is my podcast studio. A little plug there. It's a podcast studio in London, and we launched this about 3 months ago, whatever this is coming out, probably in a couple of weeks, whatever. But we launched it early this year. And even that came out of a place of necessity. We lost the podcast studio before that we were doing our other podcast in. We had to find somewhere. Instead of renting somewhere else, we launched our own. It's just how my brain works, right?
It's a big like looking at your life, it is a massive contrast going from going to Sankey's and playing festivals, right? Like 8-9 years ago, to now when I call you, you're going through getting banking licenses and FCA agreements for the apps and stuff you're building. It's really good to see. And I think, like, looking at you from an outset, I think you've done really well to get your health back. You've come obsessed with the gym. You've got cold plunges, all these. On the way here to the studio today, you've took 6-9 different nootropic tablets. But I think it's really good for like people to see on the outside of like you've really worked hard at that.
Well, no, it's been very proactive. Even though I was forced into a corner. If you want change, you have to. It always comes down to discipline. I'm not going to try and do another clip for socials because everyone talks about discipline. You've got discipline. If you haven't got discipline, you've got anything. It's true. If you want to do anything, it doesn't matter. You have to be disciplined in it. And I've just now had to get to a point where I have to be disciplined in my whole day. Otherwise, everything falls apart. Yeah. And I remind myself of what my life used to be when. I mean, obviously we had fun, but my life was a mess, man. And you know it was. So I feel very fortunate to be sat here with you doing this now. We've come full circle. We met on the dance floor, essentially. Yeah. And now we're sat here doing a podcast for a business which we're super passionate about. Yeah. And our health is much better, mine and yours, mate, because, you know, your
gym at 7 o'clock this morning.
6, mate. We're up at 5. We're at the gym for 6. Yeah. So, you know, listen, for anyone who is listening who potentially thinks that they want to change something or do something different, you can do whatever you want. You just gotta. I always used to say this to people when people used to say in nightclubs, come up to me and say, "I want to be a DJ, but how do I do it? I've been trying for years." I always used to say, "How much do you want it? How hungry are you? And if you are hungry for it, as long as you've got the discipline to follow that through, you can do whatever you want." And that's why we're sat here now doing this. Yeah,
very, very good. I'm very happy you've opened up to that and
really enjoyed this journey so far. Like you said before, just to touch on that point, it has been a massive transition, like a huge change. But I'm much happier now. As much as I might, and I know you say I get flustered and stuff, because I do, right? Because I am spinning plates. I'm spinning them to the best of my ability, and I am learning to control my schedule as much as I can. But I know you bear with me, so thanks for that.
Thanks everyone. Thank you very much,
Cheers.
guys.